Good day. My name is Marcus Lynn. I'm the senior pastor of First Christian Church of Versailles. This is the second in a series of short videos explaining exactly who we are and where we are headed as a church. Almost every Sunday, if you're here, you will hear that First Christian Church exists to make disciples of Jesus by being the family of God sent into the world on a daily basis. Our last video explained what we meant by that. In this video, I want to unpack how we accomplish that. How do we make disciples who make disciples? Simply put, we try to imitate what Jesus did. And if we read the Bible carefully, we see that Jesus lived and invites us to live with him a three-dimensional life. One day, in fact, in the life of Jesus is sufficient to illustrate these three dimensions. When Jesus decided to form his core group of disciples, he withdrew to a remote mountainside where he spent the night praying to God. And that's a vivid description of what was for Jesus the primary dimension of his life, his relationship with the Father. This dimension was so central and profound that Jesus described it this way in John 5. He said, "Very truly I tell you, the Son can do nothing by himself. He can only do what he sees his Father doing, because whatever the Father does, the Son also does. For the Father loves the Son and shows him all he does." And then after he spent that night in prayer, Jesus carefully chose 12 disciples in whom to invest his life. And discipleship in first century Palestine was a deeply committed covenantal relationship in which the rabbi invited his disciples to share every aspect of his life so they could become like him. And so for the rest of his ministry on earth, Jesus lived in the closest kind of community with these 12 disciples and also a wider circle of disciples whom he called friends. Jesus could have decided just to proclaim his message as a solitary preacher and be on his own, but instead he intentionally chose to live in close relational community with others. And that's the second key dimension of Jesus' life, the nature of which he expressed on the last night he was with his disciples in the upper room after washing their feet and sharing a sacred meal. He said this, "A new commandment I give you, love one another. As I have loved you, so you must love one another. By this everyone will know that you are my disciples if you love one another." The same morning that Jesus came down from the mountainside with his 12 disciples, joined up with a larger group of his followers, and then he gathered a large crowd of people from all over Israel and the wider region of Palestine. He proclaimed the good news of the new covenant of God that he was making with his people and the powerful kingdom that was being unleashed. And he proclaimed with his words, and then he demonstrated by his actions. And Jesus claimed authority given to him by the Father. Divine power flowed through him to heal the broken and release those in spiritual captivity. See, Jesus didn't limit himself to only two dimensions, a relationship with God and the supportive relationships of community. He also lived in this third dimension of reaching out with God's love and power to those in the wider world. And so this powerful third relational dimension flowing out of the depth of the other two is what made Jesus' life truly revolutionary. The fruit of Jesus' life was undeniable. The power that flowed through him was obviously good and from God because it consistently produced healing and wholeness and reconciliation. And so we've come to understand these three key dimensions of Jesus' life of up, in, and out. It's a basic pattern he set for our lives as his followers. And we've learned to express this pattern to those we lead using a simple shape of a triangle, each point representing one of these three dimensions. And so we believe that the DNA of a disciple of Jesus is made up of three relationships and is best illustrated through looking at a triangle. And using that framework, that's how we make disciples of Jesus. we seek to organize our lives around these three relationships or dimensions as well. In the next video, I'll outline how each of these relationships or dimensions plays out or ought to play out in the life of each Christian and our church family. Thank you.